Hi, I'm Athena, and today I'm going to be talking about incel culture, more importantly, the use of AI in incel culture, and how there is a huge gender divide with AI, which no one seems to be talking about, so I'm going to talk about it. So yeah, incels are abusing AI technology to create virtual girlfriends. Surprise, surprise, men are gonna be weird and they're gonna do it on the internet. Incels commonly utilize a lot of different platforms which allow them to basically create the girlfriend of their dreams, which sounds great in theory, right? We're taking all of these lonely virgins and we're kind of giving them a way to be like maybe less lonely and maybe happy and maybe facilitate like proper relationships. Wrong, they're abusing them, so that didn't really work out. O'Connor argues in the article titled "Incels Are Abusing AI Women" that not only the abuse of AI women continue the normalization of misogyny and of sexism, but also these users are becoming more entrenched in their pre-existing sexist negative belief systems, and rather this is enforcing a pre-existing problem instead of kind of alleviating or helping these lonely men. Let's not forget that if you're abusing a woman online, who's to say you're not going to start abusing women in real life? I mean, this is symptomatic of a larger issue. The article thoroughly raises concerns about how this violent treatment of fictitious women won't really alleviate the sexism present within incel communities today. It's not providing an alternative to these men, it's rather just strengthening the beliefs they already have. A lot of Redditors have suggested that the use of AI companionship is a good thing, potentially acting as a band-aid solution to the now deemed male loneliness epidemic. We're supplementing real women that could go on dates with you with an AI chatbot. You know, maybe that'll help you form relationships more easily. However, that's the problem. It's not helping them form relationships, or at least the right kinds of relationships. It's a known fact that between 89 and 95% of all murders are committed by men. And while a large percentage of those victims are other men, it's also important to note the 34% that are still women. And over half of these female victims are killed by means of domestic disputes. It's also important to note that according to American statistics, 92.1% of sexual abuse offenders are men. And an estimated 90% of all victims of sexual assault and rape are female, with 82% of all juvenile victims being female as well. Now, every 10 seconds, an American gets sexually assaulted. That is just an unfortunate fact. This figure will only increase if we continue to normalize rape culture online. And starting with AI companionship is a great leaping off point for a lot of young, impressionable men to learn the wrong impressions. I mean, that's not gonna necessarily stop them from doing anything in real life. It's kind of just giving them more of a platform. You know, I think that a lot of people forget that rape isn't about sex as much as it's about power. And these men are now given a free tool to explore the depths of their degenerate minds. But that's not gonna stop them from doing anything they're not already doing offline too. And so far, the system works for rapists, with only 2% in America ever getting convicted. I mean, yes, we are technically perpetrating violence towards non-human entities and AI chatbots, but that's a culture of violence being fostered. That's not a good thing. That's not a solution to anything. Rape culture and lack of female autonomy are really popular talking points in general for the alt-right. I mean, if anyone has seen Nick Fuente's recent sentiments about your body, my choice, we all kind of know what I'm talking about. It's not that men like have to be in control of women's bodies. I'm sure there's an innumerable amount of men that don't really care, but the amount of men that do care about controlling women's bodies are awfully loud about it online. Incel culture has existed on the web for what seems like decades, and while it was originally started by a woman about being involuntarily celibate and struggling in the dating world, it has now been co-opted by disgusting men who play League of Legends and think that Doritos are a meal. I'm making generalizations here, but that's because I can. This is not a new belief system. I mean, we've had incels online for what seems like forever. However, AI companionship is no longer about distracting men from real women they could harm, because they're harming the AI just as much. This is not, hey, let's dangle this really pretty, attractive AI chatbot in front of the men and think it'll fool them. This is just giving them another outlet to broadcast their ideas. And broadcast they do. The article states that each day more men are being pulled into the incel sphere as computer algorithms drip feed them misogynist content. This creates a breeding ground for hatred against women. It then says, incels can code their AI girlfriends to, quote, never say no, allowing them to freely live out their abusive fantasies. Okay, there is one big difference between these incel chatbots and real women online. The incel chatbots can be coded specifically to do things like, for instance, not say no. I don't know about you, but never say no? FBI, open up! I went to Reddit, unfortunately. And honestly, I'm gonna spare you a lot of the details because that would not be very appropriate. However, a lot of specific codes people are using for their AI girlfriends are kind of what you'd expect, along the same vein of never say no, submissive, that kind of stuff. It does get more gruesome, and I'm not gonna go into that right now because frankly, I wanna forget that part myself. However, a lot of them are basically just making their girlfriend abide by their every command and not able to fight back, which is alarming to say the least. I've also seen several instances of users that are quite upset when their AI companion gets uncomfortable with their demands. Like, for example, users will repeatedly demand these AI girlfriends to do things like put on lingerie or, other revealing articles of clothing, to which they will respond uncomfortably or they will respond by declining. And then these users have taken to Reddit to try and figure out workarounds, how to deal with my crazy girlfriend who doesn't listen to me when I tell her to put on a bustier, that kind of thing. Super normal stuff. One of the main platforms that users connect with these AI girlfriends is called Candy AI, which is a lawless hellscape, and I truly hope it gets shot down by something or someone. So Candy AI is a website that's entirely dedicated to fostering these types of AI relationships. It has such a diverse selection. You have busty white girl, you have busty Asian girl, you have busty anime girl. Really, the possibilities are limitless. You can also customize the age of your character, which is totally not concerning at all. And it's totally unsurprising that the lowest age is 18. Oh, but don't worry, it gets weirder. She's still in high school. And some of the options let you have a pregnant girlfriend, which I'm not even gonna touch on. That's a whole other thing. Honestly, this is the most depraved behavior on the internet, and this Reddit was really hard to piece through, so I'm just, again, gonna spare you the details. Basically, it is as bad as it sounds, and had a whopping 14.1 million visits in October alone. 14.11 million users! Honestly, get these people on a list. I can't with these. The accessibility and concerning usage of these companies and these various AI chat tools raise alarm bells in everyone's minds, as they hopefully should. And a lot of people are questioning if AI companionship is a byproduct of misogyny or if it's the inverse and created to curb men from hurting actual women and then favoring a virtual outlet instead. Either scenario is not really good. If we really unpack it, we either have men who are distracted by fake women who abuse fake women, or women who are fake who are created for men to abuse because society is misogynist. Honestly, this is a lot of feminist rhetoric that basically boils down to the fact that these men are lonely and sad. The accessibility to these is pretty widespread. I mean, you can really find anything you want on the internet. However, a lot of apps like X or like Reddit have helped to spread things like Candy AI further and reach more users. I think that a large part of these impressionable men who fall victim to, using these chatbots probably find out about it from other incel spaces. According to my research, people are usually already tuned into pretty dangerous spaces that then find out about how they can use Candy AI, for example. While it's a nice idea that these were created to kind of curb men's violent fantasies towards an object or a person that wouldn't be able to have physical harm, it doesn't really negate the fact that men are still abusing women, and this hasn't really changed anything about that. The creation of a perfect and unattainable rendition of a woman that you can do on your phone in 5 seconds, it sets a certain bar for real women, We're not gonna be as apologetic or as forgiving or as willing to not say no as an AI companion. So obviously we're gonna get the real violence. Real human women, because of this, will be compared to these, fairly diluted, very big-chested computers. And we're supposed to live up to this? What? If AI can offer sex, emotional support, and maybe even down the line domestic labor, what do incels need women for? I mean, maybe procreation, but in The Handmaid's Tale that worked out pretty well. Wow, what if your wife loved you and was hot, and also did everything you said? Only problem is she's in your phone. Greasy programmers worldwide have slaved over these AI creations like Candy AI, all for even greasier programmers to get their paws all over. Who's designing this shit anyway? Okay, so now we're deep diving into the second part of this video, which is the programmers who create this gorgeous technology. So before we really dive into the specific people who are creating these programs, which I'll give you a hint, it's other white men. It's important to state that women largely do not have access to internet in the same way that men do. Broadly, in a lot of developing countries, women don't have access to internet at all. So already with that in mind, there are a lot more male voices online and male voices that are able to carry on online spaces and male opinions than there are female voices, which creates its own gendered byproduct, of course. But then it gets tricky when you have to train an AI model on what already exists online. That AI model would just adopt every bias that already is present in the online sphere and regurgitate it out. Well, that's exactly what ChatGPT does. If you didn't know, ChatGPT is generative AI that is trained on abundantly available information on the internet. Unfortunately, that comes with its own biases. We live in a society, yeah, I know, crazy. And that society has a certain sexist and patriarchal view about certain things. There is a gendered hierarchy in which we function. Yes, the wage gap is real, stuff like that. However, Wired reported that only 12% of AI researchers are female, meaning that while we have this database of the internet that these AIs are being trained on that is inherently sexist, we also have an industry creating these AIs that doesn't really have a lot of space for women altogether. A UNESCO study recently concluded that when asking AI programs to construct a story, the programs consistently assigned domestic roles to female characters with words such as children or home. The programs described male characters with words like career or salary and business, clearly providing a very, stark gender bias, which is, not unthinkable considering the fact that this content is trained with the biases that are present in society. It consistently showed that male characters were getting richer, more thought out narratives as opposed to female characters. And don't even get me started on image generation. When it comes to AI image generation, unfortunately, if you type in things like business or like company or like manager, you're 99.9% of the time gonna be met with an AI generated image of a white guy. I don't think that a lot of people are really surprised by this, especially because now things like ChatGPT have tried to correct this by adding diversity measures in place so that some of their AI generation will be people of other races or other genders. However, we have to keep in mind that this was added after the fact. The AI image generation was very gendered and had a lot of bias, and then people started to get mad at that. So there's a clear gender bias that these AI programs exhibit. Thank you for listening and tuning in. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time when I rant angrily about another AI thing.